The start of this year, I've had a cyclone. In 7 weeks, I lost 3 close family members. I've had 2 close friends diagnosed with cancer.
When life is lifing and the fucking wheels are falling off and...
Are you too expensive for your own business and therefore need to look at other ways to achieve the same result?
Jumping around everywhere and like obviously getting a lot done, but not actually doing anything to move the needle on any large scale projects.
Why I have a business is so I can be a great mum. We hit the wall because our son didn't settle in childcare. Everything is fine. That didn't work for us. How much do I now need to raise the bar in my business in order to achieve what I want to achieve in my home life?
So my next special guest on next season, Kiah Woling, is someone who I met many, many years ago when I was running my business and it was feeling very, very chaotic. I attended a workshop called Uncomplicate Your Tech. So she was there at that time in my life to help me solve a lot of problems in the business and streamline things and sort of help me get the whole team sort of on one platform. We were using ClickUp at the time, I remember. Anyway, fast forward a few years, I'm in the middle of the trenches of motherhood and I think, who can I call right now? Knowing that Kiah was mum as well, I thought, I now feel chaos in my life as a mother. I'm going to give her a call, and we had the most incredible conversation. Kiah gave me some really good tips on how to structure like the perfect daily routine so that I could start doing more of the things that I wanted to do, having those deep work focus blocks and that sort of thing. So I've brought Kiah in today to talk to you guys because the show for me is all about exposing people to my little black book of contacts and my friends and the people who've really helped me on my journey. So Kiah, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I think I've told people a little bit about you, but if you wanted to kick things off by just giving a little Kiah intro, that would be awesome.
Oh, okay. No worries at all. So I am Kiah. I am a mum of 2 very active boys who are now 8 and 10, and you probably met me when they were probably closer to, I don't know, 2 and 4
Toddlers.
even. I don't know, they were tiny. And yeah, I've been working for the past, this is my 10th year in business, in streamlining and automating systems for business owners.
Yeah.
So-
And in turn, building a business to support them, but a business as well that worked on your terms. Like tell me about what inspired you to build a business that worked around your role as a mother and your family, as opposed to like squeezing them into your calendar.
Yeah, I feel like the moment you become a parent is the moment you discover your parenting style. I fell so in love with my kids. I knew I didn't really want to miss anything, and it became evident pretty quickly that I wanted to be there for them. So it really came inside out. I was like, well, this is a non-negotiable, so how can I now make this happen and design a business model that's going to allow me to work school hours only, so to speak. I mean, they weren't even at school yet. I was actually already running my business. I was 2 years into it when my youngest was born. So I really think it came from the inside out. I didn't really have an external reference or inspiration. I didn't really see anyone doing it quite the way I imagined that I would like to. And every decision in the business since then has been, okay, righto, if it's school hours only, what does it look like? And how do I make it work?
Tell us a little bit about your daily routine.
Yeah, well, there's the chaos that is parenting, and then there's the sanctuary that is going into my business and doing work that I love. So I tend to toggle between 2 modes of that. It starts always, obviously, getting everyone up and out of the door and making sure those things are happening. And then I have a moment of transition where I'll go from mum mode into work mode, and then I'll stay in that work mode fairly intensely and in, as you described, in some focus blocks, and then obviously need to transition back out towards the end of the day and then go back into mum mode through until when we all fall asleep at night and do it all again. There are days where I'll start the day with exercise. So my husband and I, we toggle kind of exercise mornings as to who's doing what. But for the most part, yeah, it's just shifting between those modes throughout the day.
And I remember that being what I gained most from our conversation with you was how to structure that ideal day. And I explained to you that, I get up in the morning and there's kind of the morning routine with Ariella. There's the cooking of her breakfast. I often cook Jack breakfast as well. At the moment they're eating breakfast together, I make healthy hash brown and eggs, and they sit opposite each other at the breakfast table. And if he's not sitting there and he's still, doing work or getting ready for the day, where's daddy? It's breakfast time. And it's very, very cute watching them sit there and have that moment together each morning while they're having breakfast. I kind of run around, get all the daycare stuff ready to go, pack a bag, then sort of get her off to daycare. Normally normally I drop her off around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And then your tip was to have like a transition period built in from like switching out of mum mode into whatever mode I was choosing for the day, and having like 20 minutes to do something to kind of shake up the energy of that. And you suggested you're making a coffee, putting on some music, having a little dance around the house, or like going for a walk, or like whatever it might be. So because I walk to daycare, I tend to do that on the way back. So I'll walk back from daycare, I might listen to a podcast. I definitely get back and then have like a routine of kind of resetting the house before I start for the day. But I've been really diligent in actually mapping out, and I'll make sure that we share this on the screen, is the ideal sort of workflow day. So I have in blocks for the morning routine, the daycare drop off, the reset time, 2 hours of deep work. Another section which I love, this is your trademark, for shits and bits.
Yes.
Because I found like one of my biggest problems with like particularly like working from the home or coming back into the home environment after this sort of busy morning routine is I would just like sit there and get so distracted by, oh, I'll chuck a load of washing on, or I'll, rearrange a cupboard, or, like just
Yeah, that's
jump
what you
in.
do when you work from home.
Yeah,
That could
or
be a
jump into
distraction.
emails, get
Yeah.
stuck on life administration and be sorting out insurance, or I might need to make some travel arrangements for a trip that Jack and I have coming up, or whatever it might be. So I was just like jumping around everywhere and like obviously getting a lot done, but not actually doing anything to move the needle on any large scale projects or things that needed to be done. They were kind of getting buried under all of these distractions. So I loved that. Like I loved just having allocated time for shits and bits, and then jumping back into a, deep work segment and trying to have at least 2 or 3 of those deep work blocks throughout the day to get shit done, and then building all the other stuff around it. And that's been like so awesome. It's also helped with the transition lately too of getting in more help. So Jack and I are at a point now where we recently went through a nanny agency and we're kind of looking for a bit of a unicorn. We wanted someone who could help with Ariella, but also help with a little bit of the house management. So like a sort of role between house manager / nanny. So having figured out this daily routine and structure before bringing her in allowed me then to start delegating some of those things out further to free up more time for myself when she's there, which meant laundry went to her. It meant creating, SOPs essentially for the home and treating the home like a business, giving her a full inventory list of all of the groceries that we have in the house, any staples that we need, like in the laundry and bathroom, that kind of thing, and asking her to check that each week and restock them. So that takes that away from me as well. And there's been all these little things that I've learnt to delegate that, obviously don't light me up and are not, my genius zone to be even playing with every single day. And it's making a huge difference. It's been a work in progress. We only hired our new house manager / nanny sort of towards the end of February, but I'm really feeling like the energy has shifted lately. I'm feeling so much more autonomous. I'm being able to like focus so much more on myself, and then obviously getting back into the business, working on the podcast project and many, many other things that are like starting to like come as an offspin of that as well.
I feel like you're like my ideal student. You've just got all the gold stars. You're describing your house manager / nanny. I did exactly the same when the kids were little with an au pair. And it was, you're describing something extremely similar to once you've got your own structures and systems in place, it's much easier to be able to delegate them out. And that happens in business and in motherhood. Yeah, you have remembered and nailed absolutely everything we talked about. I'm so
Well,
proud.
you're a great teacher, great student. But the other big like realization I had too, and it's similar to you in how you realize like first of all, like being a mother is important to you and business is second. To me, I identified sort of 3 main roles that I have, and it's obviously being a mother to Ariella, being a very supportive wife to Jack, who is, as you know, like a high performing, obsessed businessman, and then, having time to work on my own projects and be my own person as well. And so I will sort of oscillate and jump around between these 3 particular roles. They're all as important, but essentially for me, I'm like you, the family component is always going to be stronger. Like that's where I want to make sure that everything is set up to support my daughter and my husband before I do the me time. Then I can enjoy the me time a lot more too, because I'm not going to have the guilt as well. So and a lot of that comes down to obviously boundaries and like how you set yourself up. So what did that look like for you in terms of like your approach to boundaries and organization of your time to be able to like do the same thing essentially?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that the boundaries come in with a lot of the decisions that I will make around my work. There are 2, I think we are similar in a sense that family, in fact, you'll speak to most people and they'll say family first, but the ability to design what the business looks like in order to facilitate that is where we need boundaries. And so when I am establishing any product or offer that I make or making any strategic decision in the business. I'm really looking at, I guess, where the start and end of the day is, but also like where the start and end of the deliverable is, and where the start and end of my contact time with clients is versus the stuff I'll do behind the scenes for them. And it really comes down to my calendar. So need to be a real queen of mastering my calendar. That's true. If it's not in my calendar, it essentially doesn't get done. And that is very much the case for anything that's going on for the kids, anything that's going on for hubby, anything that's going on for me personally or in the business. It needs to be scheduled in, and being able to then pass that on to clients so that they know specifically, okay, well, I'm working on this piece of work for you in this period of time, has made it a lot easier to set those boundaries, because there's a communication element to that, because you've communicated with everybody where you're at and when and how. And then there's a discipline piece, I guess, where you uphold those boundaries and, gently have to have conversations sometimes. And other times I actually rely on my clients being really forgiving, because there is shit that happens. And there are days that all of a sudden it's not going to go to plan. And being able to have those conversations with my clients, I actually have to have a little bit of give back from them as well, and then I'll make it up to them in some way another time. Maybe it's an extra bonus hour or something else happens that gives back to them to say thanks.
And what do you think is like a productivity or motherhood, something about productivity or motherhood that we rarely talk about, but we should?
Yeah, I think it is when the shit happens, because we all have this idea that everything is going to go, or we don't all, but we certainly have an idea that things are going to go according to plan. And there are times things don't go to plan. For the start of this year, I've had a cyclone. In 7 weeks, I lost 3 close family members. I've had 2 close friends diagnosed with cancer who I want to be there with. And then all of a sudden you have a brain fog you're not necessarily dealing with, or you have to move things around because there are 1,000 public holidays. So in amongst all of that, anything that I would normally, have as a wriggle room in my calendar isn't there. So there are moments where that's really tough. And I think being able to have conversations and say, actually, you know what, right now it's pretty tough. It's not perfect. It's a bit messy. And is it okay if we just push this out to such and such date? Because we want to stand by our word and by our promises. And that's what we do. We want to, be the great wife, be the great mum, be the great business owner, so to speak, who's delivering that work. And so I think sometimes having when, we don't have to pretend that things are 100% okay. Don't get bogged down in that and use it as an excuse. That's an excuse. But I think just being able to say, okay, well, this is what's going on for me right now. Now here's my solution to that. Is this okay with you? I think people find those conversations hard, and we probably don't talk to each other enough about how to navigate those ickier times, because we can do all of the planning and strategy and have the coaching and get the mindset. But when the wheels have fallen off a little bit, because they do tend to fall off, like how do we navigate that when it gets a bit messy? Probably need to speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. Because we don't, ultimately, one of the things that we don't want to do, particularly as ambitious women who are trying to be it all, have it all, we never want to disappoint anyone, and we don't want to fail. Like, we take failure and disappointing others, like, yeah, it can be something so little, but if I know if I've done something, I failed at something, or I've done something wrong, or I've disappointed someone, like, it hits me so hard. Like, I get
So hard.
so upset about it. And that in itself can be so derailing too, because you don't have
True.
time to have a pity party when life is lifing and the fucking wheels are falling off, and, like,
And
you've
the
just got to
pity
get on
doesn't
with
help
it.
anyway.
No, it doesn't.
So,
It doesn't. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it's like they say, like, worrying is like walking around with an umbrella, waiting for it to rain, and it may not. So it is definitely something we just have to like nip in the bud and move on from. But yeah, in terms of trying to, protect your time, I guess, like, what are some of the best sort of tools and automations that you've set up like week to week to free up mental capacity?
Yeah, I think there's 2 elements to your question, I think.
Yeah.
One is like how do we like the time element, and one is the psychological freedom, because we need to lift the weight sometimes on just that mental load. I will tend to automate absolutely as many of my tasks as I possibly can if I find myself doing the same task the same way over and over again. And even if I can only partially automate that, and still need to have something that I need to do, then I will automate the creation of a task in my to-do list so
Mm.
that mentally it's more that I go and go, oh, okay, well, I've got these things that need to be done today, rather than thinking about what it is and carrying it in my head until I get time to get to it and how's that going to go. So in terms of go-to automations, I think what I really am looking for is what am I repeatedly doing and how can I lift the load on that to kind of free up that psychological space.
Yeah.
From the time perspective, it's definitely more about using scheduling tools. I personally use Acuity. Some of my clients will use Timely, Calendly. There's different tools out there. And that just lifts the load then on if things need to be reshuffled. My clients can reschedule in my calendar. They have full visibility of what I've got available and I haven't got available. I think I would literally fall over if that tool got turned off in my business. Like that's definitely an app that I 100% must have. And then anything that helps me manage my relationships, because at the end of the day, it's about connection. So anything that is going to help me make sure that I know precisely where that client is at that moment. And I do have an assistant who every now and again I'm like, hey, can you reach out to this person, please? Because I haven't been able to get to them. There is that human element. But if there's other ways that I can be managing the expectation, so they get a reminder before we're meeting, if they get an email that says, hey, have these things ready, that sort of thing just helps lift the load and create the space that I need. Yeah, to make sure.
And going a step back for anyone who's quite new to the concept of automation, or even
Yes.
knowing like what are the repetitive tasks that they're carrying out each
Yeah.
day within their business or their personal lives, how would you suggest someone actually get a bird's eye view of what that looks like?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is that each time you find yourself doing something the same way, have a notebook or a Google Doc or something, an Apple Note in your phone, where you're starting to keep a bit of a list. And each time you're doing it and doing it again and doing it again, you're going to see that thing appear in that list like 4, 5, 6 times. Oh, okay, righto, that's clear. That potentially is something. It is a system of thinking, being able to automate things. To There's a part which feels like you're going to lose personal touch because it's like, okay, well, now that that's on an automation, and maybe I'm not going to have contact as much, or maybe I'm not going to be able to, make sure the quality of that is as high. And, so it takes some learning and it takes an approach to automation which allows you to diffuse those things so that you still can keep personal touch. But yeah, just starting with a list, being able to see, okay, what's repeatedly coming up, even if you don't yet know how to automate, like it's just starting very simply to think, oh, Kiah made the tip to go and write these things down. Okay, well, now I know what they are. Okay, well, now you can have conversations or go and do your research to figure out what tool is going to help you automate that. Are we using an AI tool? Are we using more of a workflow automation tool? Are we using more of a marketing automation tool? Because there's lots of tools. And it is a maze, really. But if you know what you're starting with, because it's like, well, actually, I do this thing all the time, so I want to achieve automation on this thing, that's much easier to solve than, okay, I want to automate. And it's kind of like crickets because you haven't figured out what
Yeah.
that might look like.
And I think the whole like approaching the world of tools is a bit to some people like approaching the world of AI at the moment. Like it's very daunting and scary to people. How difficult is it to literally implement some tools or teach yourself how to use tools to actually make your life better? Like, do people just generally put it off because it is like learning another language and they think that it's in the too hard basket, and therefore they're just punishing themselves because if they actually did the work, they could completely transform their lives?
Yeah, there's two types of people. There's the people who get scared of it when they have a look at it and it's like, oh, that's daunting. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing over here. And then there's the people who try everything and get really overwhelmed because they're just literally having a go at it all. All of these tools are there to we need to leverage them. It's to solve a problem, so to speak, or to provide a solution to something or some kind of outcome. That if we're talking in business mode, it's normally because there's a strategy piece or there's something going on in the business or there's a problem you're solving for clients. And so what can accidentally happen is people are like, oh my gosh, ChatGPT, yeah, I need to go and use that. Or, oh my gosh, there's this new tool over here and everyone's saying I should use it. And so they'll go and check it out. But they're not checking it out through the lens of like, what the tool is doing. They're just thinking I need to turn the tool on, the tool's going to do that thing for me. And if you don't actually know why you're turning that on and what you're trying to solve or what you're trying to achieve, then yeah, you can just be like, oh, I don't know what that is. I'm going to go back over here. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to strategy. What am I trying to achieve? What have I got to do here? How am I trying to shift the needle? Am I trying to get a 1% change, or am I trying to get a 20% change? What problem have I hit in my business that I've outgrown a certain app and it's not doing what I need it to do?
Mm.
So that's a skill on its own, because just looking at the shiny fancy things and going, oh my gosh, wow, there's a new course tool, I'm going to go totally use that, and then you don't actually have it in your strategy to create like a course anytime soon. I've seen people tank thousands of dollars just turning on an app and start paying for it, but don't
Yeah.
actually know what they're trying to achieve in there.
I was going to ask that. I was going to be like, how much time and money are people just chucking in the can?
Yeah, I think, again, contain it. So one of the tips I give clients is, I say it's a 1-1-1 rule. It's, if you can create 1 hour a week where you think about automating one process, so 1 hour, 1 week, one process, and then you can go and look at the apps you're currently using and read some of the features, just get to know it a little bit better. It's because it will open your mind to possibilities, and then start kind of troubleshooting how you might be able to improve that process based on something new you might know, or just sometimes just sitting down and assessing it, so you don't end up in the rabbit hole. And you can set yourself that 1 hour timer and do a little bit of learning and do a little bit of playing around and do a little bit of, oh, can that work for me? And maybe have a go at building something out. Because over the year, even if you work 52 weeks of the year, even if you only work 40 of those weeks, which if you work school hours is more like what you will work, you've got your 40 steps ahead of what you were before you set that time aside. And you haven't really overtanked the week, because you haven't gone too far down the rabbit hole where you've eroded hours that you could otherwise be billing out at, or, doing productive work.
Yeah. I mean, I hate going down rabbit holes. Sometimes I like going down them for fun, like there's the old rabbit hole of some sort of psychological development or gossip or like whatever it might be online that really pikes your attention, and it's like fun to chase the rabbit down the rabbit hole. But when it comes to business, like I knew that could be a weakness of me, like going in, learning, like trying to fix and navigate things on my own whilst taking focus off other areas that needed to be, continue to be pushed along. So in my case, I engaged you to come in and actually set all of that up for me. And I think, yeah, like you can go two ways about it. If you've got the time and you've got the patience to be able to do this work yourself, like it's definitely the way to go. But yeah, if you're wanting to get like the expert in, I think this is why, you're so in such demand in your field. There's not too many people who will already have like so much of this inbuilt knowledge from years and years and years in the space, and understanding all of the different tools and how they speak to each other. And when you operate from where you're at versus someone who's just starting out, it's like two completely different spaces.
This is very true. And being able to speak a language to clients that breaks that down, so that they do understand. Because in my head, if somebody says they've got something going on in their business, and I like to say, the little meerkat inside that's going like on the keys and all of the programming going on in my head and all of the options and things that I've seen before, and it's very fast, and I can go from saying something in one thing to going, oh yeah, and so the answer is blah, and I forget sometimes that the string in between that's gone on in my head there's a lot of years that's gone into that. And so then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm here. All right, how do I take people through understanding that in a really digestible way that knocks out all of the jargon, that really calms it down? Because often if I can calm it right down for them and it doesn't feel so complicated, then actually actioning it is more achievable, because they're like, oh, I can do that. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me now. I can give that a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then other times people just go, actually, I don't want to know that. Hand it over. Yep. Get the outcome back. And everybody's at different stages in their business at different times. So,
and I can imagine you deal with like a lot of people in your space who feel like completely overwhelmed all of the time. What's kind of the go-to for those types of people? Like, what's this one small like actionable tip or step that you give them in when they're feeling in a place of overwhelm?
Yeah, create a moment of pause. I think we spoke about the shits and bits part of the day. We spoke about the time blocking, because that's really important if you can make moments of deep focus and then get other little bits in between. But when that overwhelm kicks in, it's knowing what your moment of pause looks like. That might be going and sitting out in the sunshine for 10 minutes. That might be making a cup of tea where you actually sit and drink the tea. That might be dancing because you put your favorite song on. But when that overwhelm kicks in, then it's just a moment to step away And it's the same as if we're working on something deep focus and we start to get a bit blocked and we start to cycle over. And you can sense when you're going in that kind of like unproductive mode. By stepping away and just pausing and then coming back to it, it's amazing how quickly when you come back, you're like, oh, penny drop, bang, and you move through that thing actually quite quickly. So you got to actually let go and step back. And then come back into it and do a little bit more work. Then step back, overwhelm's kicking in, okay, step back out of that, take a moment of pause and go back into it. And I think slowly and steadily, the overwhelm dissipates. Yeah, that's my experience.
Good advice. I love getting your emails. You're very clever with the subject lines as well. One that's recently come through that I thought we could talk about a little bit today, because I thought this is something that like women struggle with a lot, is like figuring out their hourly fee. I love that you've actually got this coming up, haven't you? Is it a workshop?
Yeah,
that
I
you're doing?
did this one yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. I had quite
So
a few
tell us a
people
bit
in
about
there.
this, because I mean, women struggle with it all the time because like A, imposter syndrome, B, oh, I don't want it to be so prohibitive that everyone can't work with me. Yeah, it's a very interesting one. Love to know your take on this.
Yeah, well, I guess I came through it at the lens that a lot of apps, when you're trying to track the profitability of your business, rely on you knowing what it costs for you to sit in your own seat in your business. And often we'll do it if we're hiring, because we'll understand, okay, well, if we got to have another desk because we need desk rent, or do we need to have another wage, or do we need to have another, well, even if they're freelancing, what does that look like? And then what's the super component on top of that? And then if I want to buy them a gift, so we have a cost, I guess, to us working in our own businesses. And often that cost rate needs to go into these apps and platforms for the apps and platforms to then do what they do to show you how profitable are your jobs. And then later on, the question comes, how profitable, therefore, is your business? Because there's what we do hour to hour to consistently stay on track to be profitable. And then there's the business profit, which is different because you've got other expenses and you've got taxes to pay and you've got other components. And I think people don't necessarily understand what all of those pieces are. So then they stare at this app and they go, I don't know what my what does cost rate even mean? What does sell rate even mean? I don't actually know. So for the most part, it's really just guiding them through that process of understanding, well, there's all these pieces of the puzzle. There's all these levers. If you're designing your own life and in your mind, in order to live the life that you want to live, you're going to pay yourself $100,000 a year. I think the average Australian wage in Australia is somewhere around 98,000. That's not minimum wage or any of those things, but it was like, okay, well, you've set up your business because you want to create this. So what does this look like for you? And when you pop in there, what you want as a salary for yourself, so to speak, or what you want as a profit margin on your business, because they're all levers that you can pull. And do you want to work on billable work to clients 80% of the time, or do you want more leverage products and you actually want to work one-to-one with clients only 20% of your time? Like, what are all these levers and how does it work? And how do we then put that into an app where there's a cost rate line and a billable rate line? And then how does that light up? And Stream Time, Harvest, apps where we are putting those kind of metrics in, well, you actually you can train your team to be super hyper productive and automate most of your work, but if those two numbers are wrong, then you're also not going to achieve what you want to achieve. So that's really what we went through. It's not so much, I guess, I don't speak so much from I can't speak from a financial perspective or an economic perspective. That's not my training, but it's more, okay, well, the apps are only going to go so far to support this if you can't put the thinking into what's going into the app in the first place. And so, you get to make your own rules, really, as a business owner. It does depend on what your clients are willing to pay you. So obviously it's like, oh, okay, brilliant. That's my cost and that's therefore what I need to bill myself out at. Well, will anyone actually pay that? Are you too expensive for your own business and therefore need to look at other ways to achieve the same result?
Yeah, I can
set your
imagine
strategy differently.
I can imagine the whole process must be very sobering and like super revealing. And you talked
And
a little bit about
confronting.
how much, and confronting, like how much time do they want to spend working, I guess, like one-on-one with clients versus one-to-many. And I think we, even in my own business, like I used to love doing like all of the one-on-one stuff, but then there'd be the scope creep and the extra hours that you weren't billing them. And, this stuff really resonates with me as you mature and grow up in business and you start to welcome in other responsibilities in life as being a mother, a parent, a wife, like whatever it might be. You start to think, well, my time really is limited. And how do I make maximum margin on the work that I do?
Well, what is my margin?
Yeah,
A lot
well,
of
what
people
is it
don't
to
actually
start
even know
with?
what the margin is. So,
And
then you can tweak it and
Mhm.
refine it and change it and grow it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And particularly when we talk about, wanting to get in that extra help around the house as well. Like, people will say, oh, you're so lucky because you can afford a nanny, thinking that it's like coming from a place of privilege. But to us, it's like, no, we worked our whole lives to set ourselves up in a financial position where when we did decide to have children, we had that built in. Like we knew we could have that support because we would need it because we don't have anyone else around us. And so you had to make strategic decisions years ago before, this arrived and why I had Ari so late in life. But yeah, for anyone who's listening who's like, oh, I really would love to have like more time and more, freedom. I'd love to be able to afford help, but can I? Can't I? Even running that exercise to work out what you're making as your hourly. And then realizing that like a nanny or a babysitter or a home helper is going to be somewhere between, maybe in Sydney it's around 35 to 50 depending on experience level. But you look at your own, like even if you just added that on, like if you just went, okay, because a lot of people don't even raise their prices in business. They stay on the same, charge rates for like years and
Yeah,
years
it's
at
something
end.
I would look at quarterly in
Yeah.
my business. I think it's healthy to be setting up uh, quarterly reviews of what's going on with each of them. I will quarterly review, automations. Are they still flowing? I'll quarterly review a budget. I'll quarterly review, what's my one-page marketing plan. This quarterly review of, well, what are the hourly rates and what's going on in the business. They're all things, I think there's a whole catalogue of things that you can regularly look at in
Yeah.
business. The same way as you can regularly quarterly review electricity bills and you can quarterly review insurance. You can cycle through to make sure you're getting the best deal for those things. What's happening on my mobile plan, at the moment, because there's always creep.
Yeah.
And so some of those are paralleling side by side between motherhood and being in business. And when it came to us, I wasn't as clever as you. I was an older mum. Before I had kids, I was total, I would say, a fairy. Like I would just flit around. I didn't really take anything too seriously.
Yeah.
And I think I became a parent and a business owner at the same time, and the personal growth was enormous. I felt like I was finally adulting, which is great. Congratulations, Kiah. You are now an adult. um, but I think we hit the wall because our son didn't settle in childcare. So in my head, you go back to work at a certain point, you settle into childcare, everything's hunky-dory, every kid loves childcare. They play with their friends all day, everything is fine. That didn't work for us. And so we weren't financial necessarily for an alternate option. That wasn't in our plan or radar. But we went down the path of getting an au pair. And that time, I don't actually know, my finger's not on the pulse. At that time, it was a very reasonable option for us. We had the best au pairs, and to this day, we're still friends, and they've had their own kids, and they've come back to visit, and one day we'll get to Europe and we'll see them. It was only once we were in the corner and that was the right decision for us that we made it work. And so then, yes, you are looking at the business going, okay, well then, in order for that to happen over in home life, what do I need to do in my business in order to facilitate this? And so that referencing for me, in when I say I'm a mum first and a business owner second, I think all of my motivation for my business has come back to why I have a business is so I can be a great mum and I can be in the family and I can have time and space, to run the household and for hubby to work his long hours and for everything to still be okay at home. That was really became important, and we weren't going to achieve it through childcare. So I had to get an au pair. And so then, yes, of course, you do. You go, okay, righto, how much do I now need to raise the bar in my business in order to achieve what I want to achieve in my home life?
Yeah.
And that cycle continues over and over.
It does. I think as women, ambitious women in business who are mothers, we're very scrappy. We can always find a play and a way to solve a problem. It might take a little bit of give and take to get there, but we do get there. And ultimately, we're in charge of life by our design. And that's an area that I've been really getting into lately. It's an area that I'm kind of starting to speak a little bit more on, not just on the show here, but doing some coaching and stuff around as well, which is the how to, run the home like a business and applying a lot of the business lessons into the home. And we mentioned a little bit earlier in the potty talking about, like having systems, operating procedures around the home and being able to delegate and get people in to help run that. And then essentially, you're working towards the goal of just having a household manager one day. Like it
Or
just
delegating to your own children is also a superpower.
not there yet. Not there yet.
That will come.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
Like as a mum, I don't want to raise a privileged child who's not, learning the fundamentals. Like there's a lot of Gen Zers out there that don't even know how to boil an egg, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of life skills that aren't getting passed on. There's a lot of food comes from Uber.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, this is true. I've made a conscious effort of that the kids
Yeah.
know how to put a load of washing on.
Yeah.
My son is currently 10 and can do a cooked breakfast for the family, and he actually loves the kitchen, so we're quite lucky. But it's how I often think like they've got to be able to go out in the world and check on paper. My job is until they're 18. It probably won't be, but it's like, okay, well, at 18 they need to know how to have these life skills, and that is part of what I have definitely adopted is like, okay, well, if they can be doing this now, then they will be doing this now. And I remember reading something very early on, which was, each birthday add them a new skill or a new chore, so to speak, in the house.
Yeah.
Something that becomes their responsibility because over the 18 years, like they, if they've added lawn mowing and they've added setting the table and they've added doing a load of washing and they've added ironing once they're a little bit old, like then they essentially will come across a lot of the skills. And I think I've roughly approached it in that way.
Yeah.
But it was just that idea of like, okay, yes, I need to delegate this over. I need to hand this over. And whilst I could be doing a better job of this right now than what they are, and I probably will still need to come behind and clean up some of the pieces.
Yeah.
To give them that confidence that, oh my gosh, you did such a good job of that. You nailed that. And even if they haven't nailed it, it's like being able to have the conversation. That's like running a team.
Yeah, it is.
When
The
you're
household's
training
a team. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think eventually, if you've got kids who have got entrepreneurial spirit in them as well, it's like teach them the fundamentals so that they know how to do all of these things themselves. So if one day they do hire someone or they get someone in, like they know what the standard is. They know. I've always prided myself on the fact that like there's nothing I've ever really given to someone else to do or employed someone else to do that I haven't done myself first. It's really good to have the awareness and the knowledge of like how it's supposed to be done as well when you are, because it's going into it blindly if you ask someone to do something and you just don't know like what the metrics are.
Ignorance is not bliss in business, is it? It's like you could definitely have a whammy if you don't know at least the basics, if you don't deep dive into it, but have enough knowledge across the board to be able to direct things. Yeah.
Do you see many parallels between running a business and running a home?
I absolutely do. I think also because I started running a household at the same time as I became a business owner. So I think in terms of the skills I was learning through business, I applied at home. The skills I applied at home, I started applying in business. I think the living constantly outside my comfort zone, right at my edge of growth, that is happening between business mode and mum mode the whole time. Yeah, so there's parallels there. I've seen clients of mine, I haven't done it myself, but it's so clever, like run a zero account for the household as well as a zero account for their business. And I think that's genius. I've just never quite got around to setting it up, but I think you can keep yourself fiscally tracking in a really similar way. And I think culturally, if you look at like, okay, well, I want this kind of vibe in my household and I want this kind of vibe in my business, there's so many parallels going on. Obviously, there's also things that are just totally different because where in business you might be dealing with adults and you can rationalize with them and then you can't rationalize with a 4-year-old. Those things are different. They're not quite the same. You do need different skill sets for that. But yeah, there is a lot of parallel.
And do you believe the same leadership mindset applies to business and running the home?
So I would say yes and no. I would say yes in a lot of areas. And then in other times, it just depends on how you as a partnership are distributing, I guess, the load. Because there'll be times definitely where I step up as the leader in a situation in our household, and there'll be other times where my husband will. And we just have the conversations around, okay, well, who's going to carry the bat right now, so to speak, like which one of us is going to take the lead.
Yeah.
And so I think it toggles. Sometimes I actually need to step out of leadership mode. There are times, when the kids, like what they actually need is just that really maternal mum who's not trying to, lead it or fix it or, go into bat at school. Like sometimes I'm like, do you want me to go and have a conversation with the teacher about that? They're like, no, mum, settle down. Like
Yeah.
can get a bit overexcited. So I think I need to toggle between the two, but being aware of which one it is at that moment, I think absolutely you need the leadership skills and they do carry on at home. And then other times you've also got to know when to park it. And I think, yeah, it's a bit of a dance.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned, defined roles in terms of like how you show up in life in partnership. Elena Cardone shared a reel recently where she talked about Grant being the CEO of the business, but her being the CEO of the home. And Jack actually shared it with me because we have conversations around this all the time. Like even when Ari was born, I'm like, you go do the work thing. Like that's your genius zone. Like I would never want to be like, oh, let's approach this 50-50 so I can still play in my PR agency. But I see myself as the CEO of the home, hence why I've become someone who's obsessed with running the home like a business and doing all of those things that you just mentioned. But that's a conversation, right? It's a conversation that you have with your partner, and it's like, how do we divide and conquer? How do we play to our strengths? And I think when you do actually define those roles and say, like, who's going to lead the charge, and then also like stay out of my business, so that there is just one person like responsible for that, it can make for like a much more like harmonious place as well.
Yeah, this is true. We have an inside outside rule, which is very traditional, where anything that's going on outside the house, I know that my hubby will naturally take the lead on that. If it's going on inside the house, then I will generally take the lead on it. So if there's a renovation outside the house or there's something going on with the pool or something needs to be looked after, it's not sort of spoken. It's just we agreed to it without agreeing to it, but it just works for us. And then it's like, oh, that one, now it's a bit of banter. Okay, well, that one's outside, so that's all yours, and oh, that one's inside, so that's all yours. So we have this kind of like inside outside rule that goes on from time to time. But yeah, it's all communication because you can't just do 50-50. That doesn't work.
No.
And it might work for 3 minutes and then the next 10 years it doesn't work. And then the next 5 years something else works because everything is changing all the time.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
so you
you've
just
got to
stay in communication.
got to be flexible with those seasons, and you've got to recommunicate and kind of reset the North Star on the map, every season that comes by as well.
Yeah, this is true.
And it's ultimately teamwork, and not just teamwork as, partners, but I guess as children get older, you're like a whole little team working together.
Yeah, we've referred to ourselves as Team Woling from very early on. Yeah, so we go, okay, righto, Team Woling, let's go. And I know that I've signed off on many birthday cards and all sorts of things as Team Woling. So that's certainly something we see ourselves as being. We're also a super sporty family. So my kids love it. I love it. Craig loves it. I remember before even, we got married, we would start of the AFL season, bring the mattress out into the living room and lie there and watch football for an entire weekend. And now the kids will do that with us. So yeah, I think that team spirit coming through because we see it in sport and we live and breathe that we adopt some of that mindset through as well.
We're also an AFL family. Who do you barrack for?
We are Lions fans.
Carlton Blues over here.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's their second team, so I think we can be amicable.
No, it's lovely. It's I love the analogy that you draw between the team sport, the family team, because I get ultimately we're a team, and it's so much less scarier to go through life with teammates and partners and people to hold hands with.
Yeah, we're one team. So when the kids are going to start battling each other because they're boys, and they every now and again they start to decide to get into a little fight. We're like, righto, chop chop, we're one team here. We're on each other's side. That's what we're here for. So
yeah, amazing.
It's a good mindset.
What would you say a successful day feels to you? Like not on paper, but actually feels like as you embody it?
Yeah, calm. So I feel if I can keep that even keel and that steadiness, and at the end of the day, I'll see it, because if we're sitting down to have dinner together, there's a different kind of conversation and vibe at the table that you'll feel like just this joy and this calm that's coming across, and that's I guess what I'm looking for day to day. There are days that doesn't happen because that's reality, but for the most part, that's what I'm constantly trying to re-seek. So I know if we're off track because things feel too chaotic or if there's too much going on, if I get to the end of the day and I just can lie down in bed and we give each other a hug and it feels like, okay, cool, I can drift off to sleep now with ease, that generally is a sign of a good day.
I think for me, like just success in general, when you measure all the days together, is there peace and progress? And not all days will be peaceful, not all days you feel like you're making progress. But in the longer term, like, do you keep seeing peace come back into your life, and do you feel like you're progressing and building towards something?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
I like that a lot.
Oh, it's been such a good chat. I know there's so much valuable insight in this conversation that people will be able to get out of it. When I wrap all of my episodes, I have 3 questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to fire them at you now. This season of my life feels like?
Sunshine.
One thing I've stopped apologising for is?
Playing my own music in the car.
What do the kids normally like to listen to?
Spotify. Some Indian Christmas carols. That was ridiculous. And then it was like July and this is not on. That's off. I'm playing my music. Ridiculous. Oh, everything. It's like a crazy, silly playlist because one minute they're playing NSYNC and then the next minute they're playing Metallica. And it's everywhere because it's just whatever is trending with everybody at school or
Yeah.
or what they hear. They love rock music. You know, they got obsessed with School of Rock as a movie and a show. And so then they got into rock and they love it. So it's just like all over the shop. And then every now and again I just call it, that is it.
Yeah.
Mum's music. That's it.
Good tip to know for with Ariella once she
Yes.
starts wanting to play her music in the car. And the last question, I want women listening to know that.
Oh, I think just that they're so loved and they're so capable. And that's really important to remember.
Beautiful. Thanks, Kiah.
My pleasure. Thank
And
you
if
for having me.
anyone's looking for you, what's the best? Where do you hang out most online?
Instagram probably.
Yep.
And LinkedIn, they're the 2 most common.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we link
Yeah.
them
Thank
in the
you.
episode. Thank you.